Okay, so that was a summary of our sign-up family, and this is really just a broad overview in this webinar. Over the coming weeks, we'll focus more on particular topics. But now I'd like to talk to you about vSolution Matrix. So this is a product that was launched 2 years ago as a dedicated active learning solution for universities and colleges, for example. Over the last 2 years, the product's developed significantly and we've added additional functionality. Some of you may already be using vSolution Matrix. I'm just going to give a very brief overview of some of those features and then talk about how it's been used in different environments outside of education. So very simply put, so what is vSolution Matrix? So it's our networked AV solution. So you can take one sign-up core, add the vSolution Matrix feature pack, and then you can connect up to 40 sign-up core devices over the network. So a simple gigabit switch in between all these devices allows them to talk to each other, and then the user can actually share content over the network. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to log into my demo setup here at home and just show you what that looks like. Okay, so you should all be seeing the web interface of the main sign-up unit, which is here in my home office. So I'm just going to talk through vSolution Matrix and what it all means. So here you can see this is the HTML5 view of a sign-up, which obviously, like I explained, allows you to launch any content that you like. So that's really handy, whether that's an iPad or whether that's through a browser. That's really useful if you're not using that. I encourage you to experiment with that. Over here on the left-hand side of the screen is the Matrix tab. We'll delve into that in a second about what that looks like. But I just want to take you very quickly into the configuration just to show you how simple it is to configure a matrix. Okay, so this is the matrix configuration tool. So you simply log into the admin interface of the main sign-up unit, and you can set up to 5 configuration templates. So this is particularly useful if you've got a flexible space, maybe with mobile furniture or mobile screens, or a partition wall that is removed for some teaching activities and put in place for others, for example. So you can switch between those templates, and the end user can switch those from the control interface. So in terms of how you configure a matrix, so as I explained earlier, you connect all your devices onto a gigabit switch or onto your network, and then all your devices will appear here on the left-hand side. In the center of the screen, this orange section here represents the presenter. So this is the main sign-up. I've got 2 sign-up cores on my network. I've named them Group 1 and Group 2. I can choose how they appear on the matrix template. So if it's circular tables or rectangular tables, I can choose between the 2. So let's go straight in and just configure the matrix. So I'll choose a square or rectangular table for Group 1 and drop that into position. I can also color code these lines here to represent the group. So it could be the blue group, the green group. Some customers are naming them by country, which is quite interesting. So I can change the colors. I can resize these to represent the room, so users can orientate themselves. And then I'll take Group 2 and just drag that into position as well. So very simply, this is a 2 workstation matrix solution. We've got the presenter in the middle, and we've got the 2 groups in position. So what I'll show you now is just a slightly different configuration. So this is taking the same concept, so Groups 1, Groups 2. All I've done here is I've just applied a JPEG background. I've taken a floor plan from an existing teaching space, and I've taken blocks which represent the furniture. So You can choose just to have a completely blank background, so it's a very clean interface, or you can bring in an image to represent the teaching space. So this is particularly useful if you've got a lecturer or professor that's maybe nervous about using an active learning room for the first time. This helps them orientate themselves within the space. They can see the doors, the windows, where the furniture is positioned. Then the matrix workstations are in position. So we'll exit the configurator now, and I'll just show you what that looks like. Okay, so we're back to the main sign up. So this could be installed at the lectern position or on a mobile trolley within the room, for example. And I select the tab on the left-hand side. So I just launch into launch a new presentation. Okay, so I choose the matrix template. So like I explained, if you've got a partition wall that's open for certain hours during teaching, you could choose the matrix template that represents that furniture configuration. That could also be triggered by a partition wall with a contact closure fed through to your control system and fully automated from a Crestron control system, for example. So here's the matrix that we've configured, groups 1 and groups 2, and our presenter station represented by the lectern here at the bottom. So some of the very simple features, and I won't go through everything because I think we're hoping to run a dedicated vSolution matrix webinar later. But very quickly, some of the key things that we can offer. So first of all is you can view what's happening on all the screens. So here the presenter station could be connected to a projector at the front of the room. This is what everyone can see in the room. We've got group 1, they're sharing an iPad, excuse me, with a whiteboard. And obviously that's a live feed as I squiggle on my whiteboard here. Group 2 don't appear to be working on anything at the moment. What I usually particularly like about this is that it gives presenters the confidence to see what's happening in the room. So not only to make sure that the students are working on the activity that's been set, but also to check they understand what's been given to them in terms of the task. The presenter can look from the presenter station into any of these to see what's happening. They can also do it in a bit more detail, so they can press and hold over each workstation. So this means they don't need to intrude on what the group are doing on a given activity. It may be they check in, they think what they're doing is completely correct and they're doing a great job, so they don't want to disturb them. But they might want to focus on group 2 and wonder why they haven't started presenting wirelessly or annotating on any content. In terms of sharing, so you can click the main presenter station. Very simply, you can push your content out to all screens. I can now look and see that each workstation is receiving what I've just sent them from my workstation. Another useful feature, so you can actually link groups together. So if you've got a large active learning space and you could have up to 40 of these tables, you could link certain groups together to work collaboratively on an activity. So if I drag and drop between the workstations, now you should be able to see that group 1 is sharing their content with group 2 and they're working collaboratively. So it gets quite powerful. Certainly as the number of tables increase, you might want to split the room up into the left-hand side of the room and the right-hand side of the room, for example, just to make the session more interesting. Okay, so the last thing I just want to show, so as well as sending, receiving content and distributing it to the workstations, which is extremely popular, each workstation is completely independent. So outside of teaching hours, group 1, or a student could walk into the classroom, they could sit at the group 1 table, they could wirelessly present, they could do a video conference through Zoom, they could collaborate with other students. They could also invite other groups to collaborate with them. So for social learning or revision or study purposes, it allows the room to be used flexibly outside of the core teaching hours. So it maximises the return on investment. And these spaces, excuse me, are proven to be extremely popular with students, both inside teaching hours and outside. So the other thing that is particularly useful, so you can also share files with these stations. So for a group activity, the lecturer or presenter may want to pre-prepare some content. So it could be an activity or a task. They maybe don't want to do that live in the room, so they produce a PowerPoint slide or a PDF document, a Word document, for example. They bring those with a memory stick or save them to the cloud device, storage device, and they want to push that content out. So for example, I've got a USB stick connected here. So let's say, for example, the presenter in this room is leading a session about the Myers-Briggs type indicator test, and he's explaining about different personality traits within the workplace. So the presenter could be working on a presentation which all the students watch. As the session progresses, he might want to send group one a sample test activity. So I can press and hold, and I can see that the students are still collaborating and working, sharing to the screen, but I've now shared a test document as a sample exercise. So group two, as part of the same activity, they're probably given a slightly different task. So we could share an image with that group. Sorry. Okay, so so group two are given a bit of a fun exercise about Star Wars characters and how that relates to different personality types, and they're given a task to identify themselves. So at all times, the presenter can see exactly what each group are working on, and that's completely live. So as you can see from group one, as I'm making some annotations here, that's streamed straight live through to the presenter. So it's really dynamic content sharing, and it goes beyond just streaming video and audio to the workstations. It also allows lecturers to prepare in advance. So if you've got a large active learning classroom with potentially 100 students spread across 40 tables, then it may be that some pre-work's required, and by configuring these task files, then the presenter can distribute those. Okay, so that's vSolution Matrix. I'll just switch back to the presentation. Okay, so very briefly, so user interface, so you can have a JPEG background image, as I demonstrated, which could represent the floor plan of the room, or it could just be completely clean with no background at all. File sharing, there's a full list of documents that we support through vSolution Matrix. Again, this is a real unique feature to WolfVision, and certainly kind of urge you to take a look at that. We support up to 40 workstations. So here's a picture from an installation at the London Business School. Again, those 40 workstations could be 40 tables, like I showed a few slides ago. They could also be supplementary screens throughout the space. So there's many ways to configure it. Show all screens with a single press of a button. That's a really popular feature. And these are the two modes that I briefly described in the demo. So coaching mode is that you can link different workstations together so they can work on a shared activity. Group work mode allows students to come into the space outside of teaching hours and collaborate with each other. It doesn't need to be driven by the main presenter, and they've got the ability to take control. When the teaching session starts, the presenter can come into the space and take control back of the matrix. But this really means that you're not limited to the core teaching hours, which could be 8 to 10 hours a day. It means that set points in the year, these spaces can be really popular for revision purposes or group study work. And it allows you to transfer the matrix into that type of space without any additional configuration. Quick slide on remote collaboration. So we've got a matrix installation here in the image with 40 workstations. Now, as each of those 40 stations is completely independent and people can connect, collaborate, and use all the features of the sign up, then you could also bring in remote participants through Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and WebRTC. So that really allows you to extend the classroom. You could bring in remote speakers to present to an active learning group, for example. So it becomes quite powerful. It's worth kind of thinking about different ideas about how you'd implement that into teaching. Also, Panopto I mentioned, so you could record the active learning session from the main sign-up station, publish that directly to Panopto or Opencast, or record it locally and distribute to a cloud service or an FTP server. So in terms of the original design for vSolution Matrix, so first and foremost, it was designed as an active learning solution. We've got over 250 customers worldwide that have implemented it now. The development team have learned an awful lot from those customers and added new features over the past 2 years. What we've discovered as a company is that the key features or attributes that people like for active learning spaces, ease of use, ease of configuration, ease of management, these are extremely popular in other sectors. So we're just going to take a quick look at some examples of other projects where vSolution Matrix has been deployed outside of education. So here's an example of an IT training facility using a mixture of fixed and mobile AV within a space. But again, just like a higher education example, it's moving content tasks around the space. So this is more kind of commercial training facility rather than a traditional higher education environment. The big sector for us is medical and healthcare. So both in terms of universities where they're training medical students, but also medical facilities. So here we've got a dentistry example where there's training stations. Each of those screens represents a sign-up call, and content is distributed around the space. And the other huge growth area for us as a company is the court and legal sector. I won't say too much about that because my colleague Damien will be running some dedicated webinars on that sector in the coming weeks, and I'll provide further details in a few slides' time on those. The other interesting use case is training and online assessment. So there's a huge increase in these types of spaces, both within education and corporate facilities, where courses need to be completed online, and accreditation needs to be completed online. So we've got an example here where the sign-up is streaming content locally out to each of the workstations. We're also distributing content out to multiple screens. So it just demonstrates the different ways that you can apply the matrix. Like I say, it was designed as an active learning solution, but we've actually learned that it's a really flexible platform. And it's interesting to see how the consultants, integrators, and customers we work with are finding different ways to use it. As the product develops and the different use cases emerge, we're seeing like different types of furniture. So could be collaborative pods, technical furniture, wall-mounted screens versus integrated into furniture, or completely mobile solutions. So you could have a pop-up active learning space, for example, where you have 40 mobile units that are wheeled into a space. So the space doesn't need to be dedicated to active learning for the whole year. Or you could have a combination of fixed and mobile furniture like we're showing here. So in this example, we've got the lecturer here in the middle with a mobile touchscreen connected to the main sign-up. The professor is pushing content out to each of the workstations. And in this case, there's removable tables with mobile screens and a mixture of collaborative pods. So this is particularly interesting where students are increasingly choosing the way they learn, so the type of environment they choose to study or work in. So where you've got a hybrid space, it allows the student to maybe choose a semi-enclosed collaborative pod to work in versus a more open plan area. Again, from a technology perspective, it's very simple for us to integrate Matrix into any of those environments.